I'm about to blow your fucking mind. So capitalism is an economic system based on infinite growth and infinite consumption on a planet with finite resources. Therefore, by definition, it will result in the death of the planet. We can choose to have capitalism or we can choose to have a future, but we can't have both. I'm about to blow your fucking mind.
So yeah, to whoever this lady is, you definitely blew my mind. I mean, this is actually insightful, yet dead wrong. It's insightful because if you didn't realize how much the educational system in the US is in the absolute toilet, then you should know now. It should be pretty clear just based off this video. Now, like I alluded to before, I don't know who this person is, but it looks like they're decently popular on TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I know it's what a lot of kids use. And it's too bad that kids might see this and become influenced by someone who hasn't the slightest clue of what they're talking about. This is so incorrect on so many levels. I mean, first off, she says capitalism is an economic system based on infinite growth and infinite consumption. Right off the bat, wrong. In fact, one of the biggest criticisms of our current system in the US from free market capitalists themselves is, of course, the Federal Reserve, as it is directly antithetical to free market capitalism, and one of the things it does in opposition to what the markets would do if they were free, what people would do if they weren't operating under this centrally controlled system we've got, one of the things the Fed is responsible for is the gross overconsumption in our society. The free market wouldn't do this, and the Fed tries to, quote, correct it, and makes us overconsume. It does this in two main ways: keep interest rates as low as dirt for over a decade, and inflates the currency away, which destroys all incentive to save any money. So the only thing to do is to either invest or buy stocks to try and beat that inflation, or to consume. Why park your money in a savings account? Why stave off consumption now if you're just losing purchasing power by saving over time? The market desperately wants to encourage saving and not consumption right now, but it is the Federal Reserve, the antithesis to capitalism in our economy, that directly prevents this or works against it. Not for nothing, this lady has hashtag socialism on her video here, and I'm wondering if she is aware that Marx was a huge advocate for the centralization of credit into the hands of the state. He advocated for a central bank, basically, which is precisely what caused our overconsumption over the past decade. So it's fairly obvious that she has no idea what she's talking about. Furthermore, I'm wondering if this lady realizes that the price system is a naturally emergent property in a market economy. Now, she claims capitalism is all about infinite growth and infinite consumption. Did, I don't know, prices ever dawn on her? Prices do a lot of things and contain a lot of factors into what they'll end up being. But one thing they do is limit overconsumption. Everyone is running out for whatever reason and buying up something. Doesn't matter what it is. Let's say it's gas. Everyone starts buying a lot more gas all of a sudden. All things being equal, you will start to see gas prices rise. This will incentivize people to conserve more with their gas. Perhaps not drive everywhere if they don't need to, or they might carpool, whatever the case may be. Or you see this in those bars that put their drinks on a supply and demand system, which is actually kind of neat, where the price changes for each individual drink minute to minute based off the demand for the beer. If there is a normally expensive beer but no one's buying it, it gets cheaper and cheaper. People will wait to buy it. Then when it gets to a certain point, people begin buying it, and you'll start to see the price rise. There is no one controlling these prices. No one is sitting at a computer fiddling with the numbers. It's just when a certain beer starts to be consumed to a higher degree, the price reflects that it's being chosen more often and being utilized more or consumed more, and the price goes up, which limits its consumption. That is a market system. A perfect analogy to that is a free market capitalistic way of doing things. The price system in the free market limits overconsumption. It's only the government-created institutions in the U.S. that distorts this natural process. And also, not for nothing, if you're worried about waste, socialistic societies are the worst when it comes to this. In order to meet quotas, the Soviet Union would produce in a highly wasteful and useless fashion, and create gigantic nails, for example, that had very little use outside of railroads. This was so producers could hit their weight quotas, or they diverted all their resources, for example, to farming equipment and produced far too much of it, but they didn't allocate their human capital which is creepy as hell, by the way, because that just means forcing people to go do the jobs the state assigns you. But they didn't put enough people on the farms, which is why you had farming equipment out in the fields just rusting away. It's a complete waste. Granted, they didn't have much of an overconsumption problem because there was not that much to consume, but when it comes to wasted resources, socialistic societies at best fare no better than more market-based system, and very often fare far worse. Also, this just strikes me as odd for another reason. This lady is concerned with overconsumption, too many resources being used. Now, who is the one here who is more likely to advocate for some utopia where all wants and needs are guaranteed for everyone and no one should ever go without? And no one should ever have to be in a position where they need to choose between conserving or consuming, or to delay gratification, or to save instead of spend. It would be her and her ideology, which is completely at odds with the reality that you unfortunately don't get to consume everything you want whenever and wherever you want. It is her ideology that promises some infinite amount of goods and services being given to everyone. That would be wonderful, but it's pure fantasy, and it makes me wonder where she and people like her frankly get the audacity to point the finger at free markets and say that that's where overconsumption comes from, when her ideology is entirely based off of and gets all of its support from promises that you'll never be denied consumption again. She is as economically illiterate as they come, and it's terrible the kids might see this, and then we'll end up with another generation of people with completely warped, unrealistic, and insane views. But that's all for now. Like and subscribe. Take it easy.